On this episode of Tips from the Top Floor, I'll talk to Alan Attridge about something that I didn't expect would be so interesting to look deeper into, but it actually is. The rule of thirds. This episode is brought to you by discoverthetopfloor.com, a place to learn photography, a place to photograph amazing destinations together with like-minded people from all over the world. We have finalized the Ethiopia tour in January 2016. That's open for registration now. October will finally bring me back to the United States, to New York City and San Diego. And in September, I will hold the first tour to Donegal, which to me is the by far most beautiful corner of Ireland. Find out more at discoverthetopfloor.com. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 675 for March the 19th, 2015.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hello and welcome, this is Chris Marquardt. You're listening to Tips from the Top Floor, the longest running photography show on the web. Coming to you from Hanover in Germany, actually from the, still from the Viewfinder Villa. Let's see what's new since last week. Not much. Well, worked on a lot of workshops and tours, opened up the Ethiopia tour for reservation early 2016. So that's now ready if you want to come with us. Pretty limited participation, so it's not going to be a huge group. And other than that, well, not much. So today, yes, as I said in the introduction, I'm going to talk to. Actually, no, I was interviewed by Alan Attridge of the Two Hosers photography show. And initially, when he asked me, Chris, can you come on the show and talk about the rule of thirds? I was like, oh, yawn. Done this so many times. There's nothing interesting about the rule. But nope, that's actually wrong. So, in order to not be boring, I actually sat down and did some preparation and just put together a list of things to talk about. And we ended up talking over half an hour. So he recorded that. He put it out. It is out on the Two Hosers show. I'm going to link to that in the show notes. And I asked him, Alan, would you mind if I got a copy of that and used it on this show, because I think that it is really interesting for you too. I know you are a seasoned photographer and you go, what rule of thirds? What is there to talk about the rule of thirds? Well, you'll be surprised. So here is the interview that Alan took with me.
We just start. I'm rolling now.
Good, go.
Well, we're here with, well, you know him, you love him. Number one in your... No, I screwed that up. Terrible. Terrible. I'm about to introduce the man who needs no introduction. How about that?
Sounds good.
Tips from the Top Floor. Chris Marquardt, how are you?
Hi, Alan. I'm doing fine. How are you?
Also, I'm doing great.
Long time no talk.
It's been a while since you moved away from down the street.
And then I moved to Hanover, and now I moved from Hanover to Hanover.
Yeah.
I just moved in. Oops, that was the microphone. I just moved into a bigger house. The Viewfinder, we call the Viewfinder Villa.
I look forward to seeing it.
Hey, you should come up. We do a housewarming party on the 28th of March. It's open. Anyone near, drop by.
Come on out. Anyone listening to our show in well, fly over. What's preventing you? Yeah,
sure, fly over. We have like 20 something people coming at least, and I guess we'll probably be somewhat doubling this. It's a beautiful place. It's a huge house. It's we're gonna do like photo workshops here. There's a dark room.
You have a dark room. That's
studio.
The part you have. The rest of it, that's all academic. But you have an actual dark room.
Yes, and 3 enlargers. There's
How does it smell?
They're still like Fixer. that's what they smell like. It's the part of my photography and Monica's photography, the two of us here. A part of that is still analog, it's still film, and we are starting to get back into enlarging negatives on photo paper.
Color, black and white.
Black and white. Color, yeah, no.
It's a lot of legwork.
The black and white is a lot of legwork already, but it's not just put the negative in, slap the photo paper under it, expose, and done. because you want to do the Photoshop kind of stuff in the darkroom, because that's where Photoshop comes from originally. It's modeled after the darkroom. So
you dodge and burn.
You dodge and burn. You have like a multi-contrast paper. So you have you have photo paper that, depending on the color filter you use, you can put a color filter in between. You get different contrasts. So you could expose, like, it's like painting in clarity on the grass in the foreground or something. You could make that more contrasty and the rest not more contrasty. It's amazing the stuff you can do.
It's been a long time since I've actually dodged and burned in a darkroom.
Oh, me too. But I'm
like
so
80s,
looking forward.
Mid-80s, I'm talking.
You know what? I'm really looking forward to spending like 2 or 3 hours in there, away from everyone else. It's silent. It's dark. I might have a podcast on my ears, and then just do something. It's like meditation, you know.
Yeah, my kids aren't going to let me do that.
Well, our cats might be disturbing us as well.
No, I look forward to that too. I've said before, I think on the show, that guys always talk about, they want to build their man cave with video games and a giant screen TV. And I thought, wouldn't it be great just to build like a solitary confinement for your house?
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, just come home and after work, just for 15 minutes, just you go in the hole. That's it. 10 minutes in the hole. That's it. You're done. But that's exactly what the darkroom would be great. Are you gonna have like the big revolving door like they do like in for the movies?
No. A bunch of black curtains,
Yeah.
and it's also a bright room because you can make it bright. There's a window, so it's possible to like just do regular negative development in there, which you don't need a darkroom for. Which just you can do this in your kitchen. So that's probably the majority of time that we're gonna spend in there is to develop film, and then we do a lot of the hybrid process. So we take the film and then scan it and then kind of move it over into the digital world and then continue that. Because, of course, I mean, let's face it, there's still a huge part of the photography here is digital, of course.
Well, sure, most of it. But it is. I do miss it. So that's great. I look forward to coming up there and just, living in your darkroom for a couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll put a bed in there or a sleeping bag or something.
We're recording this on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure when this is going to go up. I have to decide that later. But today's Friday, the 13th, actually.
Oh, I didn't even know. Yeah.
Right. But
You're
more
right.
importantly, you're a geek, right?
I kind of am, yes.
Okay. Tomorrow morning at 9:26 and 53 seconds, are you
Pi
going to freak
Day.
out?
It's Pi Day.
No, it is Perfect Pi Day.
It's Perfect Pi Day.
It is March the 14th, 2015.
You know what?
At 9:26, tomorrow morning at 9:26 and 53 seconds, every geek is going to freak out.
You know what? Every North American geek is going to freak out because that only works if you write the date the way those people in North America do. We in Germany write the date in a different way, so there's no Pi Day here. No, sorry. I have to disappoint you.
Well, April 31st, but so there's Pi Day. So rule of thirds. That's where we want to talk a little bit about rule of thirds. Adam and I talked about this on our show a long time ago, early on, too early, I think, in the run, like episode number 8 for some reason, which I think is probably a little more advanced than that. But we approached it at a very basic level, and it occurred to me a while ago that it's a lot more advanced than it seems.
Well, how much time do you have?
We'll go
I have
looking glass.
Okay. When you told me that's what you want to talk about, I sat down for a few minutes and made a list, and that list now has 4 main entries, and the first is Pro, which has like 5 sub entries. There's a Cons that has 3 points under it, 3 bullet points. There is an In the Context of My Photography, which I think makes sense to talk about how I handle this. And then there's a 4th one that says Thoughts, which are kind of unrelated thoughts on it. So I'm organized. I'm all ready. I'm
good,
geared
I made
up,
no
so.
notes. I kind of really phoned this one in, literally.
Yeah. So,
but first of all, before we start, rule of thirds, I have long contended that that's a bad name.
oh, that's one of the big cons. That one of the big negatives about it is the name. It's not a rule.
What would you call it?
It implies, the rule of thirds implies that this is the way you're supposed to do it, and if you don't do it, you're not making good photos, and that's BS.
I look at it like I think it should be called the reality of thirds.
For me, it's more the result of thirds, and I'll tell you later what that means in my context. It's I believe the rule of thirds is a result and not a starting point.
Interesting.
Completely the opposite way that most people look at it.
Okay, and what does that mean?
Well, let's get in. Let's look at what's good. I have a few things I love about the rule of thirds. It is a very simple, easy way to start composing pictures in a bit more interesting way. Which
I think is why we did introduce it so early on.
I believe, and someone please prove me wrong. Well, originally I think it goes back to a French guy in 17 something. No, not 17 something. No photography. Actually, no. I think it's this French guy in 17 something because it works in painting and stuff as well. So some French guy, I think, initially. That's the first mention of it. And it is kind of related to the golden mean and stuff. But we all know it. Like if you split the picture in 3 parts and then like a tic-tac-toe grid. And then if you put, that's what it says. If you put the interesting stuff on one of those intersections or one of those lines, like a horizon.
I prefer Rubik's Cube.
It works the same. And if you put the stuff on, then the picture will be more interesting. And in general, I mean, a lot of pictures are composed or are not actually composed by people, especially unexperienced photographers. They just look through the viewfinder. They see like a cross in the middle or a circle in the middle because that's what cameras do. And then they put whatever's interesting in that circle.
It's called point and shoot.
It's exactly what's done. Yeah, you take a picture of someone in vacation. Your significant other is standing in front of the Notre Dame in Paris, and then you frame it so her head is in that circle in the middle, and then you're wasting all sorts of space in the picture, and it's just a boring composition. So using the rule of thirds, you kind of force yourself to move things a bit out of the middle, and that is typically more interesting. So that's good. That's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Yes.
It's also easy to think about it as, okay, what do I want to emphasize in the picture? Let's say you do a landscape photo, and where you usually had the tendency to keep the horizon in the middle. Now you might think, okay, there are actually very interesting clouds in the sky. Let me give them a bit more space. So you move the horizon down to the third line, and you have 2/3 sky, 1/3 the ground, or vice versa. So it makes it more interesting shots.
So you're saying that the horizon can't go in the middle?
Oh, it totally can go in the middle.
Not what I read online.
The horizon can go anywhere you like. It's your choice where you put it, and if you love it that way, that's fine. So, but it does kind of feel sort of natural, you know. If I look at pictures that have rule of thirds composition, then, but that might be through conditioning. You know, I might have just been shown so many rule of thirds pictures that's kind of what I think is normal, you know.
Right.
But the one major thing I really, really, really love about the rule of thirds is that it forces you to think about what is important in your picture. Because you want to place something somewhere. If you think rule of thirds, you want to place something interesting on one of these points or one of these lines. Mm-hmm. And at that precise moment, that's when you have to really get an idea about what is it that's important in my picture. And a lot of people don't even go that far, you know. It's like, oh, point and shoot, click, and then the some of the compositions aren't that nice or aren't that strong because it's not really clear what's important in the picture. So it kind of makes you think about your subject. That's the thing. It makes
so early on, when you were a brand new photographer many years ago, would you think ahead and start applying the rule of thirds when you were composing a picture?
Well, when I started off in photography, and I think everyone does that, you just shoot trusting your gut. You know, it feels right, click. And it doesn't feel right, click, maybe even then click. But at one point, yeah, sure, I learned about the rule of thirds, and I've read about it in some photo magazine, print magazine. And it's like, oh, yeah, sure, interesting, nice. And then I started to incorporate that into my photography. But I didn't take every single picture by that rule, because that's one of the negatives about it. If you keep using that and using it and using it, your photos will just be all the same. Well, same old, gets boring. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the other thing about it is that how do you follow that rule exactly? If you're a geek, if you are like really 200%, how do you follow that rule? Because this is not an exact science. Yes, you can take measurements, you can draw lines and or put a grid on your viewfinder, but then whatever you place on there does have a dimension. It has an extent. It spreads out. It's not like you're shooting points. You're shooting a face. So you put a face on that point. Nice. But which part of the face? The eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears?
Always the right eye.
Is that so? That's the Alan Attridge extension of the rule of thirds?
Absolutely not. I do not follow that. I find, but so you start out, with the rule of thirds in mind and start working. But then as you take millions of photographs, do you physically think about the rule of thirds today when composing a photo?
No. And that's where we get to the point of that I mentioned earlier, that it's not a starting point for me, it's a result for me. So I've actually gone in preparation. I've gone through my 5-star pictures and I looked at them, and that's kind of the best pictures that I think are the best. And I very often I clearly over or undershoot the rule of thirds. So I move something kind of somewhere in the third spot, but then I'm further out or further in, or it's never precise. It's never anywhere clear. Sometimes it's not even possible to determine what the subject is. Like in some of my landscape shots, there might be 2 or 3 big rocks and things, and a bird, and what is the subject there? It's not clear. And often I find that the rule of thirds is a result of filling the frame. Right. That's one of those things and that's another one of those, in air quotes, rules, that it helps to fill the frame. If you shoot a portrait or something, it's usually you get a better result if you fill the frame, and that means not fill it to the edge, but fill it in a way that feels kind of natural. Let's think of a portrait. I'm actually looking at one right now. Here on my Skype, I have Alan Attridge looking at me. That's a portrait. Mm-hmm. That's your avatar here. And that is composed in a way that has space to the left and the right, and the head is kind of not exactly in the middle. It's slightly above the middle. And that's kind of a natural way to shoot portraits. And what does that end up with in terms of the rule of thirds? The eyes are pretty much exactly on that top line.
Right.
So very often in portraits, that's kind of a natural composition. So the rule of thirds in this case is a result of that kind of a composition. It's a result.
Actually, my wife shot that one. I didn't shoot it, obviously. I'm in it. But she's getting pretty good at composing on her own. I had to do a little bit of cropping, but definitely I didn't think about it. I didn't think I'm going to put my eyes on that top third.
Exactly. You didn't think about it. It just happened.
Yes. I said, I like to leave more chin room than head room, just because it makes people feel comfortable, like the whole viewing experience. And
it's not squashed in, so you're not like your head isn't touching the edge of the frame. It's it's balanced. It's kind of balanced. That's, I think. Let me paste a link for you into the Skype chat, and feel free to put that in the show notes, because I went to my photos and I picked a few that I think kind of show that the rule of thirds does work, but it's not necessarily a result. I not necessarily a starting point. Sometimes it is a result of looking for balance, like a balanced picture, a picture that doesn't stir anything. It's just a picture that feels kind of at ease, no tension in there. And those I tend to do more rule of thirds compositions that way. But a lot of those pictures are just not that way. And that's usually, for me, the pictures that I want to put a bit more tension in, that I want to, it's hard to explain, but...
For example, which one would you say is...
Okay, look at the one with the turbines, the one with the rusty big wall and the the turbines. If you look at that, there's this wall, there's a concrete wall, and then there are three big turbines in there, and a photographer standing somewhere in the corner. And it's like these huge turbines give you the small person there gives you a feeling for how big the thing is and how humongous this is, but that person is kind of the subject. You gravitate towards him. He has a red jacket on. He's very. I think a psychologist would call it salient, very much magnetic to your eyes. So you end up there all the time, and so he's kind of the subject there.
He is, but he's not anywhere near a third line.
No. He's really far out to the corner, and that gives the picture sort of this tension. You come back to the turbines because they are kind of visual and contrasty, so our eyes are kind of gravitate to the contrast and the brightness.
Down on that instrument. People, there is music in your head. There's music playing in your head. So listen to every word I said. There's music playing in your head. Pay attention. You've got.
Did I mention? No, I think I did mention it a couple of times in the past, and let me just mention that again. How much I love hearing your voices on this show, and it doesn't really matter if it's a question or if you came across a fun story or if you have some feedback for the show. And it's really easy to get something on the show. Go to tfttf.com, click on the orange tab in the sidebar, and then just record something. And before you send it off, you get to listen to what you recorded and then decide if it's good enough or if you want to send it or not. So it's really completely risk-free, and you can get your voice on the show. So, or pick up the phone. If you are in the United States, you can also just pick up your phone and dial 206-202-DSLR. That's 206-202-3757. And by the way, if that phone number is not in your address book, that's inexcusable. 206-202-3757, or internationally dial +447 +447 I want to hear from you, and I'm already in preparations for next week's episode, which will feature another whole bunch of your questions, inputs, and feedback. Thank you so much. Let me take a second and thank our sponsor, lynda.com. They are the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. Lynda.com is for problem solvers, for the curious, for people who want to make things happen. Maybe you want to master Photoshop or learn how to shoot with small flash, or build a website for your photography, to sell your photography, or boost your night photography skills. Anything goes. Go to lynda.com and feed your curious mind. And today I want to pick 3 recommendations from their photography section, especially these classes about portraiture. The Portrait Project, Fixing a Group Photo with Chris Orwick, Street Photography, Candid Portraiture with Steve Simon, and Photographing High School Senior Portraits with my friend Derek Story. You know, what I love about lynda.com is not only are their courses extremely well produced, you also get to learn from top experts who are really passionate about teaching, and you can tell that. So, your lynda.com membership will give you unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics, all for one flat fee. Whether you're looking to become an expert, you're passionate about a hobby, or you just want to learn something new, I want you to visit lynda.com/topfloor. That's lynda.com/topfloor and sign up for your free 10-day trial. And I thank them for their support.
Down on that instrument.
Okay, let's get back to the rule of thirds. But then you will also kind of look at the lines. There are like some white lines between the concrete, but then you come back to that person because it kind of is an anchor for the entire picture.
Now, for me, he doesn't, color-wise, he doesn't pop out.
Yeah, because a lot of the rest is also red.
Right.
It's true, but one of the reasons he pops out is because he's a human. He's a human figure, and the rest is all geometrical, man-made kind of machines. So he's the odd one out here.
And on a nothing to do with what we're talking about, rule of thirds. I think why he pops out to me is because I'm a freak for symmetry. I love symmetry in life, right? And this is not symmetry. So this is like, if you were to tell me, hey, this is a comfortable picture, I would disagree, because, well, of course that line's not in the middle, and you have, you know, two full turbines, 1/3, 1/5, and like, who does that? However, because of the lack of symmetry, I keep looking to that side and think, well, why is it? You know, boom, and right there, that's where you pick the guy up every time.
Right. Let's look at another one as an example.
You don't want to hear more about my OCD?
but can you tell the rule of thirds is often very often ends up being a picture with a lack of tension, which might benefit some pictures. Like, just imagine the purpose for one of those pictures is to put it up on a, let's say, in a dentist waiting room, where you probably want to put people at ease and not give them something to be all itchy about. Right. So you might want to take a picture that is way more relaxed, like, and that is
cat hanging in there,
for example.
Right.
Let me choose another example here. Very clear rule of thirds: the black guy with the gun.
Okay.
That's from Ethiopia, and he was one of our guards and came with us to one of the locations there to make sure we're not being caught by rebels, which is an interesting experience. So that is such a clear rule of thirds composition. I mean, look at his face is on that left rule of thirds line. His eyes are on the intersection, and that's pretty much one of the places you want to look at are the eyes of him. That's what we do. We love looking into eyes, so eyes are always kind of important in pictures. So that's a composition, and then you see his gun, which is on the opposite end of the screen, but also somewhere in that rule of thirds spot. But not a single second did I think about rule of thirds when I took this picture. I wanted this to be kind of balanced. I wanted this to be free of tension, because the content of the picture, a guy with a gun looking at us, is already kind of has its own tension in it, especially as there is a contrast between the gun and his face, because the gun is something aggressive. He's such a nice guy, like a grandfather, you know. He looks at you with he just means well. That's what his facial expression shows me. So there's a contrast there. So composing that in a very tension-free composition kind of is a bit of a juxtaposition to the actual content of the picture for me.
Right. And so you, when you're probably starting out, would you have to pay more attention to, okay, this goes here, raise the gun up a little bit, and there you go?
I didn't even speak the language. Right. I just pointed to the camera and then to him, and I gestured. Okay, can I take your photo? And he had been around with us. He had been around us for like a couple of days at that point, so he knew us, and he was totally happy to do that. And he actually raised the gun to kind of like, okay, here's my authority, and it just happened this way. But of course, I still had to frame the picture. I still had to make sure I still had to decide what goes where. And I deliberately made decisions about the spacing. That's the thing I look for when I take a picture. I want to see what the spacing is like, how I put things in relation to each other, and in relation to the frame of the picture. The surrounding edge of the picture is so important. I mean, it plays a big role. If you can, I could have squeezed him against the top of the frame, but that would have kind of felt squeezed in.
Sure.
Or I could have stepped back, and then I would have had more stuff around him, and that might have included things that I didn't want there. So it might have cluttered the picture. So that spacing is really essential, and the resulting composition, the rule of thirdsness of this picture, is just a result of that.
The picture of Joe Kraus.
Yes. the musician.
Is that rule? Well, I was there the day you took that. So
You shot video there, which still is yet to be released. What I did is I did a photo shoot with Joe Kraus. He's a German musician, a very amazing trumpet player. And I asked you if you could come to shoot some behind-the-scenes video of the photo session, and that's all about an album that they were recording, and that's still to come out this year. And as soon as that comes out, I will release the video and bring out the photo session again. And so this is one of the results. And
so is this rule of thirds or not?
Well, is it?
I don't know. This is. I chose this one for a reason, because sometimes I think we're so ingrained into thinking that it has to be the rule of thirds that even if it isn't, we will assign rule of thirds characteristics.
Yeah, the thing is, and that's what I find a lot, is that if you only search long enough, you will find the rule of thirds in pretty much any picture.
So you're saying the watch is the focus of this?
The question is, what is the most important thing in this picture? What do you gravitate towards? There's this guy sitting on a chair. He has a trumpet in his hand with a funny kind of hand gesture there. His other hand is kind of hanging over his leg with a watch, and then there's his face, and it's kind of framed with a hat on the top, the white t-shirt, and it's in front of this weird 1960s looking cabinet in the back. So what is the focus point for you? Where do you gravitate towards?
It's his expression.
It's the face, right?
Yeah.
And the face and the expression is he's not even looking in the camera. He's closing his eyes. He feels like he's in his head listening to music right now. That's what he looks like.
Yeah.
So that is the point of focus, the face,
but his face is not even in the center. It's not on any of the thirds.
It's not on any of the thirds points. It's not in the center. It's kind of off center, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to balance that against the trumpet. So if you draw a line from his face to the trumpet, then you end up with a line going through the middle of the frame. So those two are kind of his face and his expression and the trumpet kind of balance each other out. And I couldn't care less about if there is any rule of thirds thing in there or not. And it ended up not happening. It ended up not producing a rule of thirds picture.
But he is balanced by the white line across the bottom, and the break in the cabinet at the top could be, relatively close to those lines.
Yeah,
and the cabinet behind him relatively close on either side.
Yeah, but are they of any significance other than being backdrops?
They are significant in that I'm making them significant.
Yeah, you're right. You're searching for rule of thirds, like, oh, this is clearly a rule of thirds picture. No, what I think is important that if you do that analysis of pictures about the rule of thirds, then I think you should always analyze what is important in the picture. And those lines are clearly, they do have an importance in a way that they frame the subject, but then also they don't frame him evenly. They've just frame him like near close on the bottom, far on the top. So that's gonna be lots of tension. This whole thing kind of has its own tension, and then as a contrast, again, the expression on his face is just so relaxed, so not tense at all. He looks like he's completely resting in himself.
Now, what kind of music does he play?
It's a more jazz kind of music.
And what are the rules of jazz?
You will find rule books about jazz.
Sure.
But some, well, and you would be surprised. There are actually rules, but jazz is also a lot of about improvisation and making things.
So somehow, if you had shot him in a very sort of a regulated scenario, the rule of thirds would seem kind of odd, because that's not what he does.
Yes.
Perhaps if he played classical music, that would maybe in that respect.
And now all the jazz musicians listening will get up and start sending in comments about how jazz is, a lot of that is like a blues scheme and
sure.
Lots of stuff there are rules.
Right. I mean, just as a disclaimer, I know more about Australian rules football from the 70s than I do about jazz.
Well, and I'm a musician, so I know way more about jazz than I know about any sport on this planet.
Yeah, I know that when I saw them in concert that I liked it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not a big necessarily a fan of jazz, but seeing him in concert,
It's kind of a weird kind of it's an no, not weird, and it's an interesting mixture of jazz and pop and some other. He actually, Joe Kraus did an album, a cover album where he covered Michael Jackson.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so it's in his own way, of course, but it's really he's not the classical, typical jazz musician as you would imagine them.
So, what do you have for cons? Did we go through all your cons in your checklist?
Yeah, we did. I mean, yeah, the name is weird because the rule of thirds is not a rule. It's hard to follow. It tends up getting boring. But again, as a photographer, I'm looking for elements that kind of guide the eye, or that guide the eye towards the subject. Leading lines, frames, color, contrast, and things that help you tell the story. Because, I mean, as a photographer, you have tremendous power over how someone explores a picture by making use of those compositional tools. Where they look first, what path they follow through your photo, and in the end, how you tell that story, or how they are kind of forced into telling their own story. Look at that last picture, the very last one, with the black surface there.
Okay.
That's a photo that I took in Reykjavik at the Harpa, which is a big concert house, and it's built from black concrete. They have like lots of lava, so they put lava in the concrete, and so this entire thing is amazing to photograph because you have so many dark corners and things. And this is a stretch that on the top you see daylight coming in, on the bottom you see this door that is a completely different light situation. That's actually one shot. There's no compositing going on here. And it's like, I think it stretches 4 floors, 3 or 4 floors, that entire picture.
Wow.
But it's black void, and it's this contrast between daylight and artificial light, and there's lots of unexplained things going on. For example, I mean, where does this door lead to? What's that person doing there? Because there's a person walking through that door. There's mystery, and that makes you as a viewer start to put some context around it that you think makes sense. So you start telling that story. Pretty much because the picture doesn't tell anything. It's just a cool and a warm splotch of light and a shape of a person. That's pretty much what it is. So you start putting meaning into that because it doesn't really have any meaning by itself. So that's what I want to do. I want to tell the stories or help the viewer to come up with their own stories. And this is a good example of no rule of thirds whatsoever. There just isn't anything in the picture that is even close to that. So
I remember back in film school a long time ago, they basically said, okay, here's the rules of filmmaking. Okay? Mm-hmm. Then they said, you have to learn the rules before you can break the rules. And that was kind of what they always said. And I was, young and stupid. And so I felt like I don't even need to bother, learning the rules. Forget it. I can break the rules. But that's not true. I ended up learning the rules and then basically, making art.
Yeah. And it's the same here. I mean, I did at one point learn about the rule of thirds, and I did apply it, and I started using it. And there's nothing wrong with doing it as long as you don't end up as long as you don't stop your photographic development at that point. If you keep learning and improving and continuing to add new tools to your creative toolbox, then at one point the rule of thirds will automatically kind of go and retreat to the background. But it's totally fine to use it and start using it. Just I think as a main takeaway is don't take all your pictures with the rule of thirds in mind. Let it happen. Sometimes it's much more interesting to have something completely outside of those lines, and it'll probably be even more interesting and have a bit more tension, and that's sometimes what helps a picture.
Agreed. For me, what I suggest to people is go out there with that in mind when you're first starting out. learn to use it, and slowly, it will actually fade to the background so that you won't be thinking about it. You'll be doing it most times, sometimes not, but the times that you do have pictures that really follow the rule of thirds, you won't have thought about it. It'll just be sort of like a rote process in the background. Done, and there it is, and that's what's pleasing.
And you thought when we discussed recording this, you thought we'd be done in 3 minutes, really?
Oh no, I was done. I knew. I left for a bit.
You said 3 minutes. That's enough to talk about this topic. Rule of thirds: 1, 2, 3. 3 minutes, done.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I was out in the yard for part of this, so I'll have to listen back. But no, I knew there was a lot involved, and so thanks very much for coming on the show and explaining that to us.
Totally.
Where can people find? Well, I'm going to put a link up to your photos, but where can people find generally? Oh,
the best place is the place where I'm selling stuff.
Yes.
Discoverthetopfloor.com.
Right. Oh, we haven't spoken since I've watched your Aperture. Since I left Aperture and watched your Lightroom videos.
Oh, yes, you did. Right. Yeah.
Awesome. I can't believe
Did it work for you?
I can't believe that you didn't make me use Lightroom years ago.
Well, I tried, but
you
were always yourself. It's like nah, no better.
Oh, it wasn't I no better. I honestly at the time was like I don't have time to deviate from the direction my life is going right now. But no, it was definitely one of those things. I'm so glad I did. It's a great and your videos make it very simple.
That's good to hear.
So if you are struggling with Lightroom or thinking about moving to it, pick up. Where do people find that? Discover Lightroom.
It's all there. Discover the Top Floor. Links to everything I do, including all the tours. I'm moving more into photo tours. Like I'm gonna come to the United States actually in October.
Okay.
Doing a coast-to-coast tour in New York City and in San Diego.
You say coast-to-coast. Are you actually going coast-to-coast, or are you just flying over?
I'm probably flying over.
Sorry,
well, it's still coast and coast.
No, Iowa's beautiful in October.
Yeah, I know. We're just planning Ethiopia for January 2016. I've been there in November. It's one of the most, well, no, it's not one of the, it's the most amazing photo tour I've ever done. So we're about to open that for registration. We're doing one in Donegal in it's not Northern Ireland, it's the Republic of Ireland, but it's the northwest part of that. Again, amazing stuff. That's in September. So there's tons of things coming up. It's all on discoverthetopfloor.com. And that's an even better way to learn.
I think one of the real negative things about your upcoming schedule is that you seem to have not consulted me, because I'm wherever you are, I'm on the opposite end of the world at that time.
Okay, next time I promise I'll ask you first.
Just run it past my wife. That's all I'm saying.
Is she taking care of your schedule now?
I don't write things down.
That's your problem. There's the problem.
Yeah. No, my kids are out in the backyard playing with gasoline right now. I'm supposed to be watching them.
Okay, hurry.
So once again, Chris, thanks very much.
Totally. Thank you so much for having me.
Then we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks Alan for allowing me to use this interview on the show, but you might want to go and check out his show too. He's at twohosers.com, where he and Adam together teach photography in a really fun and wonderful way. Two Canadians teaching photography, and it's amazing. twohosers.com. That was it for today's episode of Tips from the Top Floor. Thank you so much for being... Well, if you're not subscribed, okay, this is now really, really simple. There's no excuse not to be subscribed. I know that a lot of people go to the website and click on a play button, but in the sidebar, there's this huge big subscribe button and on each of the posts. So if you open this on your mobile device and you click on the subscribe button, it will detect what system you're on, and it will offer you different podcatchers that are available on that system. So on an iPhone, for example, it will offer you Instacast and Overcast and lots of other the original Apple Podcasts app that is on every iPhone now that has iOS 8 or later. And it's just a one click, kind of one tap and a second tap to choose the app, and then you're subscribed. So this is really kind of a super simple automated process now with a new subscribe button. Check this out. There is no excuse. You can, of course, also support the show on Patreon and get rewards for your support. Find everything at tfttf.com/Patreon. And again, a huge thank you to all the patrons who already support Tips from a Top Floor and who are patient with me when I'm not delivering as fast as I promised. There is a patron hangout planned for next week, so if you're a patron, you get to participate in a hangout. By the way, that is true for all the patrons. I've opened that up for every single level of support on Patreon. So that's tfttf.com/Patreon. Oh, and should you wonder how to spell my lovely first name, Chris, is easy. Last name is difficult, and I still blame my parents. You spell it Chris, Marquardt. And here's your thought of the day, again reading from C.J. Chilver's book, A Lesser Photographer. This is a short one, but I like it because it really fits in with what I do here. Pass it along. The photography blogging world is full of sketchy sites, but that's all the more reason to share your experiences. Honestly, sharing your experiences can have a profound effect on other photographers. Teaching can also be the best way to learn more about something you've been practicing for years. Most of us have something we've learned about photography that's unique. A lot of us have blogs. Putting the two together will make photography a lot better. Yep, he's perfectly right. So, I think that's it. My name's Chris Marquardt. You can follow me on Twitter, Chris Marquardt, at Chris, Marquardt. Leave a review on iTunes, recommend the show to others. That's really pretty much the only way others find out about this show, by hearing from someone like you who listens to it. Go to tfttf.com/675 for more information. Until next time, go out and take great photos, and happy shooting.